Well, Albertans will head to the polls this fall, voting in municipal elections. In Calgary, Jeromy Farkas is back for a second run at the mayor's chair and will be a rematch of 4 years ago. Farkas, of course, was the Ward 11 city councillor from 2017 to 2021 and ran in the 2021 mayoral race, finishing second to Jody Gondek. He's had a busy 4 years in the interim. Joining us now to discuss the race, his decision to return to the political ring is the aforementioned Jeromy Farkas. Jeromy.ca is the website. Jeromy, great to have you with us here. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Rob.
It's interesting. I mean, we just had a federal election, we're going into the summer months, stampede, all of that. But still, I think there's some pressing issues that are certainly on the minds of Calgarians. What's your sense of how engaged or plugged in people are right now, first of all?
Well, I think when it comes to the major issues, things like safety, housing, affordability, jobs, the issues are present, right? So it's not necessarily about the next coming civic election. We got a couple months to go until that's done, but the issues are there all the same. And I think that the level of engagement is there. And as we've been going out speaking to Calgarians about the issues, what we've been hearing about is growth. So we're growing very fast as a city, and we need to keep up with that. Really means delivering safe streets, housing we can actually afford, and the jobs that are going to be needed to build a stronger city.
Yeah, and I think those have been pressing issues for the last few years. I mean, is part of this the fact that that this mayor, this city council, hasn't been able to deliver on some of those big issues? Why do they remain so front and center?
Well, I don't really want to knock any of the other candidates, but I'd say for me personally, I'm running for mayor because Calgary needs leadership that's ready for the future so that we can meet the moment as far as safety, housing, jobs. And I think a lot of Calgarians have been telling us over the past several months that City Hall's stuck and we need somebody to be able to help get it moving again. And I think that that's really the focus. Over the course of the next decade, Calgary could grow by as much as 1 million more people. That means we need to be able to solve for services, infrastructure, everything that a growing city needs so that we don't just maintain quality of life, but we actually improve it in every single corner of the city so that this growth challenge becomes the opportunity to be able to improve quality of life, not just survive it.
Let's talk about your own journey, sort of away from politics and back to it. So, as mentioned, you served on city council, you ran for mayor, and then sort of stepped away from it all. And the last 4 years have been interesting for you professionally, personally. How is Jeromy Farkas different now than say 4 years ago, or even I guess 8 years ago, for that matter?
Well, I didn't so much step away as step up in different ways. And
Mhm.
last time I came in ready to fight, and this time I'm coming in ready to build. I've gained a lot of experience as a nonprofit leader. I've learned some really hard lessons about leadership, but more so about how to bring people together. And I've really seen firsthand how policy can shape lives. And in this capacity, though, I think Calgarians are asking for leadership that will step up to solve problems. I've personally grown, or I know our city has changed, and I think it's time that our leadership did too.
Yeah. But still, I mean, for example, you're going to be running against Jody Gondek in this election. You served on council with her prior to the last election. So, do you get the sense that maybe she has changed as well, or how is this matchup, if you will, different than it was 4 years ago?
Well, I don't think this is so much a rematch as a completely new election. The
Mhm.
city's different, the issues are different, the people are different. But I think what Calgarians are looking for is just that statesmanship. There's a lot of challenges on the horizon. How do we position, say, Calgary at the center of a strong and united Team Canada? I think that that's going to be a major emergent issue over the next coming months. And it's also one of the first municipal elections that will be held with the advent of municipal political parties. And I think Calgarians are looking for that pragmatism, a leader who can make decisions without party or ideological interference. And really, Calgarians have been telling me that they want to know that their representative is working for them rather than the narrow interests of a political party. I know a lot of your listeners are very politically engaged, but I genuinely really believe at the municipal level, there's not so much a left or a right, there's only together. And that's why we need leadership that's willing to work with anyone from any background to be able to get things done for Calgarians.
Yeah. Well, yeah, these days it seems like everyone needs to or feel a need to expect people to plant a political flag somewhere. Who are you? Where do you stand? But I guess what you're saying is that it's more about being pragmatic than ideological.
Well, it's focusing on the solutions, right? I think that the challenge of, say, that growth prerogative, how do we meet the moment? How do we potentially be by the end of the next decade a city of 3 million people? It's going to mean some difficult decisions around infrastructure. How do we pay for that? How do we provide for that? And I think that what we're seeing from this current mayor and council is that really they've become stuck. They've become fractured, reactive, and too often, I'd say, disconnected from everyday Calgarians. And look, for, just as an example, they found the money for $1 billion arena, but they struggle year to year to keep essential services online, things like the Inglewood pool open, or even not being able to stop Vacova from closing its doors. So there's just a real question around priorities here. But most of all, though, I think Calgarians are looking for that statesmanship, an adult in the room to be able to really focus on that positive vision and how we meet the moment for that growth challenge in a way that just makes life better for all of us, not just Calgarians today, but also the new neighbors we'll welcome in the future.
Well, let's think about being the mayor, right? And where it differs from being a premier or a prime minister. Yes, you're sort of leading the municipal government, but you need to bring people with you. You need to be able to build consensus, or you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping to be able to provide as Calgary's next mayor, and really to be able to receive what I didn't as a rookie councillor. I want to be able to provide that coaching, that mentorship. And when I think about my own experience as a nonprofit director, as a CEO, I used to think that leadership looked like being in the center of the lights, center of attention. Leadership actually looks like being the last guy to turn off the lights, to be stuck in the chairs at the end of the room, picking up the the broom after everyone's gone. And when I think about what I've been able to build, say, for example, with some of my experience with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, with the Alex in my prior role with Glenbow Ranch, I've been able to work across party lines to be able to get things done. And I think that that's what Calgarians are looking for from this council: less grandstanding, less division. And that's a key reason why I'm running as an independent. It's not so that I'd be alone, but instead so that I can actually build that team. I don't think councillors are, or rather, I don't think Calgarians are looking from their councillor for that ideological approach. They want representation that will just be practical, focused on the issues, and willing to uh, potentially disagree on issues, but also work together when there might be other alignment.
I mean, you mentioned the arena deal, and I guess there are those kinds of decisions that maybe you would have objected to or taken a different approach on. But how much does city council and the next mayor, and if that's you, need to sort of move forward, right? You look at do certain things need to be revisited, or we just kind of move on to some of the other big challenges we're facing?
Well, my focus is squarely on the future. Of course, during an election, you need to be able to hold these candidates to account. Of course, I will talk about some of the failures of leadership. I will demonstrate a better path forward, and that's really what we've been doing through our policy briefs. We've been very unique amongst all of the campaigns. Instead of just identifying problems, actually put ideas and solutions in the window. Give Calgarians something to vote for rather than something to vote against. So again, I'm not here to revisit those past decisions, but I think that on a go forward basis, Calgarians are expecting a lot more focus on affordability, a lot more focus on safety, those core issues. And what we've seen from this council is just a lack of focus. And I think getting back to the focus on Calgarians at the center of that work is how we move forward on all these issues.
Yeah, you mentioned crime, and just a few days ago, you released your crime platform, and yeah, this is a big issue. It's not unique to Calgary, but it's one of those issues where I think municipalities do have a significant role to play. How do you see city council being able to more effectively address issues around crime and public safety?
I think in the past there's been a lot of bickering, Rob, about jurisdiction, saying this is not my responsibility. But I think very clearly what we know from the evidence, the research, is that safety is a collective responsibility. It doesn't live with one single department or one level of government or one part of the community. And I grew up in Dover in East Calgary. I know what it means to feel unsafe, and I know we can do better. We can be tough on crime, and we can be even tougher on the root causes of crime, because that's what real safety looks like. So our plans that we're putting forward is about putting safety first. Of course, there's leading on immediate measures, things like reopening the downtown police station, targeting the repeat violent offenders. But critically, it's about investing in prevention, and it's not just the right thing to do in terms of safety and respecting the dignity of people, but it's also the right thing financially. I like to think of it in terms of a household. You know, if the roof is broken, water's leaking in, how much money do you want to spend on buckets? You want to spend just enough to be able to deal with the issue, but also be able to prevent it in the long term. So I think that we got to be able to do both, be tough on crime, but also tougher on the root causes of crime.
Well, and it's one area where there's room for cooperation with the provincial government. There are a lot of issues where, that the relationship is important, but it is somewhat strained. So when you look at the importance of having open communication, good relations with the province, but also, standing up for Calgary at the same time when that's necessary, how do you need to approach that?
Well, I had to approach it with some of my more recent experience. For example, working as a wilderness first responder, as a nonprofit director and CEO. This came to head, for example, with a recent advocacy that we had around the proposed Glenbow Dam. So, if listeners aren't familiar, Glenbow Ranch is a provincial park between Calgary and Cochrane. It
Right.
was left donated to the people of Alberta. The government, for a time, was considering flooding and destroying that park as part of a flood mitigation protection measure for the city of Calgary. We, of course, stood up. We advocated to protect the park, but for us, it wasn't so much a fight, instead of trying to help the province find a different solution. And that's what we did. Rather than just oppose the project, we worked to be able to build that coalition. And that's how I brought together the grassroots and business leaders, progressives and conservatives, environmentalists and ranchers, not just to fight for the sake of fighting, but instead to be able to help find a different solution. And it was after a couple years that we worked with the province to be able to find an alternative that would be able to protect the park and Calgary. So that's the type of approach that we need. We need to stand up, be firm as far as our interests, but also to be able to find enough of a common ground so that both sides can get what they want.
You also talked about taxes and spending, and I think that's been part of your record or your reputation as kind of a fiscal hawk. And it's a tricky balance, I think, for municipal governments in trying to hold the line on taxes as much as possible, because that does speak to affordability, but being able to address some of the challenges, and especially growth challenges in a city like Calgary. Where do you find the balance there, do you think?
Well, it's very obvious we got to make every existing tax dollar work harder. So, not to belabor the point, but it's decisions that are made during budgets that reflect our values. So, for example, again, with the arena deal, there's about $1 billion in cash that was available to that, but not, for example, for other key essential infrastructure. The amount of money saved to be able to fix Calgary's aging water infrastructure is about $1 billion. So, how can we pay upfront cash for one of these projects, but the other we might have to borrow for the next 35 years? So, in many ways, it's also about making the right types of investment. Say, for example, to revisit crime and public safety, we know that dealing with, say, homelessness in an emergency response way, in terms of, say, policing costs, emergency room visits, we know that this is extremely expensive. We know that the evidence and data has borne out that dealing with this in a preventative and proactive measure, it doesn't just save lives, it also saves money. So again, it's not so much I believe that council has more than enough money and resources to be able to work with, especially if we can build greater relationships with the provincial and the federal counterparts. But we also have to make sure that we're spending the money in the right places so that long-term costs can be reduced. And just another example is, recently we've learned that it's about a quarter of the water that's produced in the city of Calgary's water system is lost due to leakage, due to the aging nature
Right.
of the infrastructure. So, for example, if we're able to address that and actually fix our pipes, that wouldn't just solve for reliability; it would also make sure that rates would in the future would go down. And these are just a couple issues that, for example, I tried to raise as a member of city council. Back in 2018, we knew that the water infrastructure was an issue. That's why, for example, Councillor Drew Farrell and I championed accelerated action, for example, to fix lead water pipes, even wooden water pipes in the city of Calgary. So it's a matter of having the right money in the right places to be able to reduce long term costs.
Yeah. And I mean, the challenge too for Calgary, because you talk about the number of folks who are coming here. Calgary can't really control how many folks are coming to Alberta, for that matter, how many folks are coming to Canada. I mean, we've got tariffs, all the uncertainty that's well outside of our control. So, what about dealing with external forces and things that are outside of municipal government's control? Because we are kind of at the mercy of a lot of outside circumstances on some big issues.
Yeah, we can't change the weather, but we can adjust our sails. And that's why I think our next mayor needs to be somebody who's practical, able to work with both a conservative premier and a liberal prime minister. And I think having that practicality is going to be key. And I just want to revisit that growth question. So, my
Right.
father came as a refugee, as a newcomer. He came willing and eager to contribute to building this country. I think that that's central. This growth opportunity that we're facing, it's incredible. I think that it can really serve to improve our quality of life. I think that this is a great thing, that we're continuing to be a beacon of talent and attracting investment and so on. But we have to be prepared. We need to be strategic and we need to have vision. Calgary's never really been proactive in terms of addressing these issues. We've always responded reactively to these growth pressures. And I know that for us to be able to be that city, then I know that we can be and that we need to be, it's going to have to come from being proactive on these issues.
Well, some important issues to be discussed in this campaign. Are we expecting, I would imagine, at some point, some debates? What's your understanding of how things are going to unfold in the weeks and months ahead here?
Yeah, we're very much looking forward to continuing these conversations, and I think the event schedule is starting up. We've already put a couple challenges out to some of the other campaigns. For example, our campaign is unique in being the only municipal mayor campaign to publish very close to real time our donors list. So up on our website, you can actually see who is contributing to our campaign as part of our regular disclosure. We're going to be continuing to put out similar challenges around transparency, around party platform, or rather platform commitments and so on. So just very excited to continue that conversation. But just to center again, this is about Calgarians. This is about ensuring that we can have housing that we can afford, that we can have jobs that we can count on, safe streets for our kids. Those are the issues central to Calgarians. And of course, the politicians are going to put forward their ideas, but I think we have to give something for Calgarians to vote for rather than just against.
All right, more at jeromy.ca. That's Jeromy. Looking forward to the race and these conversations, and I'm sure we'll touch base again down the road. But thanks for making some time for us here today, Jeromy Farkas.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob.